Welcome back to the kitchen table and welcome into a conversation that we're going to have today. This is my husband, Troy.
Hello.
And for many years now, a lot of y'all have asked me questions about how we co parent together. What does it look like? How does my husband factor into the decisions and the things that we do? And I thought it would be fun here in this new season of the Warrior Mama podcast just to begin to have some kitchen table conversations with Troy, including him. And possibly your husbands may want to listen. You may want to share this podcast with them later on, or it may just help you. So, without further ado, I'm so glad you're here with me.
Well, it's good to be here. Thank
Yeah.
you.
We're going to be talking today about how do we co-parent? How do we work together over the last, 27 years of having kids? How have we learned to work together in parenting? Has it been easy or has it been hard for us? We're going to address that. We'll share some of our ups and downs, strengths and weaknesses, the things that God has taught us. And hopefully it will be an encouragement to you. I think one of the biggest lies the enemy loves to throw at us is you're the only one. You're the only one who struggles with this, fill in the blank. And one of the lies that I think early on for us maybe was, are we the only ones who parent this way? Or I remember early on in marriage wondering what everybody else's marriages look like and what they look like with their kids and how did they have, because you and I fought, and we'll get into that. We have fought over the years about how we parented our kids. But yeah.
Well, I think ultimately probably the fear of, are we messing this up?
Yeah.
Or are we messing our kids up?
Yeah. So let's start at the beginning. A big question I always get, did we set out to have 8 kids?
No, that's a quick answer. Well, no, I think when we got married, we didn't know if we could have any kids.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, we were praying through adoption and then decided to see if what God had in store.
So God wrote a different story.
I think we may have channeled that into being overachievers, but
So what would you say, as we get lots of questions, I get lots of questions about us and how we function together with our kids. And how would you relay to someone if they were asking you, hey, Troy, how do you and Bethany function together with your kids? Like, do you get along in it or?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think, first of all, I don't know that I would sit here and say, gosh, look at us. This is how parenting needs to be done. I would say I'm grateful that parenting is both a journey. So I don't think it's ever finished, and it evolves and we grow as parents. And it's also, I think, completely seasoned with grace, which I'm very grateful for, because I would look at my parenting over 27 years and probably look at all the areas that I feel like I've messed up. So, I definitely think we are better at it today together than we were when we started this journey 27 years ago.
Yeah, because when we started 27 years ago, how were we different? What would you say? This is a loaded question. I might not know the answer to this. I might not want to hear the answer to this.
Well, gosh, I look at myself as both a husband and a father, and I was very much focused on discipline and probably focused on the kids' behavior and trying to shape that behavior. And I think I was pretty hardcore running in that lane. So I would definitely say God has completely and radically changed my perspective, even on what the goals are, which has really shaped a lot of how we work together and what I do as a father.
But don't you think, I think that if somebody were to ask me how you've changed, I think that from the very beginning, you saw the weight or the magnitude of being a father. And so it was, I think everything that you did, I don't think you ever treated fatherhood flippantly.
Right.
So I think you felt the weight of it, which I think is a very Like, I think in motherhood too, the moment that baby hits our arms, we're like, oh my goodness,
Yeah, it's a little overwhelming.
there's so
Yeah,
much, and now it's all on me. How are they giving me
absolutely.
this child and sending me home? And so I don't know that it's a, like, you weren't coming at it from a negative perspective, or like a drill sergeant for the sake of being a drill sergeant. I think your heart was, I really want these kids to be good kids.
Well, yeah, and I mean,
Don't you think that was
yeah, and I
the
would say
start for us?
if you interviewed me 27 years ago, I would say that I did take that very seriously, and I wanted to steward them well. I think probably my focus on what that means, or my understanding of what that means, has changed over time. But I
Yeah.
definitely took it very seriously, and it was, I mean, as every parent knows, you know, you have to take tests to do everything, drive and everything else, and then they hand you this baby and
There's no test.
put them in your car, and you go home, and you're like, you know, gosh, I just hope I can keep them alive. And
I remember like the first time that
kind of crazy.
we went out to like a, I don't know what we were doing. We had, I don't even know if Noah was in the car with us or if we left him at home with your mom, but like we were going down Washington Road and where we used to live in Augusta, Georgia, and it felt like we were playing Frogger. And I remember you saying that, like, we have to get home. This is
Yeah,
not safe out here. So maybe we had Noah in the car and we felt
probably.
very unsafe
Yeah, no,
driving.
I definitely think it's a, I mean, everybody who takes that child home for the first time, just the responsibility of it is real.
Yeah.
But I do, I mean, I would say I came at it much more from, I think, a behavior standpoint, much more of a, they're a reflection of us standpoint, which all of that I think God has gracefully and patiently shaped in me. And I think in a lot of ways, just the misunderstanding in my mind, even that they were our children. Like, I think one of the major kind of flips is God reminding me that they're his children, and we do steward them, but ultimately they're his, and their outcome is his. And as much as I want to try to manufacture that, that really is not within my control. It was a, I think, a big
That was a
learning.
big, it was a big learning curve for us, wasn't it? Well, so let's talk about a little bit. What were some of the things that we did early on that helped us begin to have a framework for co-parenting?
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, I think it's interesting because early on, I believe marriage is a great teaching tool of that. And then parenting becomes another level of that. I think, in particular, with sort of styles of parenting and how to, I guess the first encouragement is no two people come at it the same way. And that's
Yeah.
not a bad thing. I think ultimately that's a good thing. It doesn't feel like a good thing all the time. And there's a lot of times where I think that's where we butt heads, and it's difficult, is that you're trying to come at this, even if you've established kind of common goals and long-term vision, which I think are also extremely important, you still tend to come at it from different directions. And so, you know, I find it interesting. In John 1, it talks about Jesus full of grace and truth. And I really believe as people, we tend to either lean toward grace and compromise truth a little bit, or we lean towards truth and compromise grace. And so it's an interesting combination that I think the scripture points out there, is that Jesus was full of both. And so I believe even when we apply that to parenting, we're on a journey. And so I probably was much more truth with not enough grace, and you were probably much more grace without enough truth. And so neither one of those is good. And so I think to learn and grow in grace, and for you to learn and grow, and when I say truth, more like rules and structure and those sorts of things in parenting, is part of the journey. So I don't think it
Yeah.
ever ends. We never arrive on this side of eternity with having accomplished perfect grace and truth. But I definitely think probably parenting, more than anything else, brings that out, shapes that, allows opportunities for growth. And again, um, not necessarily easy. And I talk with a lot of guys about being refined, and as iron sharpens iron, and you think of the chisel and sparks, and that's not a, iron sharpening iron is not a smooth, dainty, lovely, peaceful process. It's usually uncomfortable and difficult, not pleasant,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, we've definitely had seasons where it was hard, very hard.
Yeah.
Um, I do think though that when I reflect back on the last 27 years of raising babies, one thing that I'm grateful for, and I think probably it is helped by both of us being inside of professions that are focused on long term, like short term and long term goals. You and I kind of came at parenthood and said, okay, so we have this little baby, and then very quickly we had several. But what are our like long term goals? And so, therefore, what become our short term goals? Don't you think? Because we kind of from the beginning, that was something we established in our parenting of we're going to always look at this from the perspective of what is this going to look like? What will this look like in 5 years? What will this look like in 10 years? How do I magnify this out? And am I going to like that over there? Don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think, and we see it even today. There's, a lot of things in parenting that may be cute at 4 that aren't really cute at 13. And I think trying to gain that perspective of, wait a minute, what is our long term goal here? But also think just honestly as a person on a journey to be redeemed to God and made right in that relationship. There's ways even with our children that I think a lot of the culture just accepts their nature for okay. And I think, in the realm of the gospel, our nature is not okay. And so I think not only not supporting it, but just challenging it and bringing it to light, not for the sake of beating our kids down, but just so they understand. So, the reality is we see it from infancy up. We tend to be selfish and we tend to be, different things even that shows up. I mean, one of the first words they learn is mine, and so
followed by no.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it's,
or maybe the other way around.
That is the nature. It's just, if it's left undone, I believe, and we believe that it doesn't lead to that redemption story and that coming to our Creator and understanding his pursuit of us in that relationship and how our flesh interferes with that. And so to allow it and sort of support that selfishness or whatever that is, rebellion, disrespect, whatever it shows up as, I think long term is not the goal. And so even at 10 months, it's not the goal.
Well, yes, because I think right now there's this big trend of supporting and creating an environment that in essence has no conflict for your child. So you're always navigating and playing to, like, if I give them enough choices, then there will finally be a choice that will help them do what I want them to do anyway, kind of thing. This more passive approaches to parenting. And I think the travesty of that is that it is actually the gospel declares that you and I are never not going to be sinful, like left on our own. So our children from the very beginning walk into this world carrying a sin debt they can't pay. They're going to choose flesh driven responses. So they do choose to say no, and they do choose mine, and they do choose to get frustrated and hit a sibling, or they do choose to throw fits and fill in the blanks with all the things that children do in the first 2 and 3 years that we often will. Right now, what we're seeing culturally is, well, they're dysregulated and we need to help their emotions, and they can't handle their own emotions, so we just support and do this gentle support under that. But the truth is, even when in those spaces, actually know that we can have conversations with our children at that age of correction, but a correction that even then is already helping them to turn inward and go, but let's look at your heart and see what's motivating you. Even at 2.
Well, the reality is the gospel is confrontational. I mean, it does confront us where we are and says there's a different way.
There's a better way, and there's a rescue.
Not our way. And so we have to be confronted in that and surrender to something greater.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times in the bathroom with a 2-year-old me talking to a child, and we in our family use the bathroom as a getaway space, so I can get quiet with one child and have a good conversation. And even at 2 and 3, going, you're stuck in this by yourself. Like, you're going to keep getting angry at your brothers and sisters. You're going to keep screaming and throwing fits. You're going to keep getting in all this trouble. But there's a better way, and his name is Jesus.
Yeah, and I mean, back to kind of the original thought is those are kind of overarching themes of our
Yes.
goals, I guess, if you put it that way, of parenting. So we're looking more long term, and I do think being on the same page that yes, that's our vision of parenting. That's our long term objective with our children. And then within that, there's absolutely tension and struggle of how each one of us bring that to the table in the moment. And so I think over time there's definitely been grace even in that. There's times where you'll say, hey, that's a little strong, and I try to bring grace to it. And there's other times where it's I'll be able to say they need to be confronted and not allowed to do
soft.
whatever, and you may be erring on the soft side. So
Yes.
I do think over time, as you walk through all that, but establishing those long-term goals and vision for what we're trying to do as parents, I think is critical in that journey as we learn how to weave our different personalities and styles.
And really, that learning the art of gospel discipline conversations, that the course I have recorded for you a podcast course, which is called Learning the Art of Gospel Discipline Conversations, which really is what we do. It is something that we kind of have come to over the years, where both mom and dad have the same concept of, we're going to come into this moment of correction with this child over a discipline situation, and we're going to walk them through these 4 objectives, which is correction. But because we hold so tightly to this idea that we are not looking at behavior, we're looking at the heart, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. We believe so strongly that we're not looking at behavior, we're not going to get stuck on behavior, we're going to look at the heart, that we go from correction in that conversation into inspection of the heart. And we talk to you about that. We teach you, what does that look like? What are great questions that help you unpack that with the child? And then the third part of a gospel-centered conversation of discipline with your child would be walking them into a place of repentance with Jesus. Not even as much repentance with us. It really is helping them understand and catch a glimpse of the fact that it is their relationship with Jesus that's where they need to have mending, and that's where they need restoration. And then the last piece of it is speaking a blessing, and spending time both verbalizing to them who they are and what we're praying for them, where we see God leading them. And so if you haven't ever done that course, can I tell you, I mean, you need that. We have so many couples who are going through it. So if you're listening and you are married and you're like, would it be good for my husband? Would it be good for a husband to hear
absolutely.
that course?
And I'll say that's where God is really transformed me in fatherhood. I speak to men all the time and talk about these things, but when I came into parenting again, I was more interested in sort of shaping behavior. And I think, for the first 18 years of our children's lives, we have all the influence that we need to up the ante, that I'm pretty confident I can shape a child's behavior because I have their time. I'm stronger than them. I own their finances, their toys, everything that I could use to apply pressure to make them behave well. But I really began to understand that's really not the objective. What I want them to do is have a heart that's soft to God, and that would be what shapes their behavior, not my power or
pressure,
money,
whatever,
or pressure, however it's applied.
Right.
And I will say something that was kind of revolutionary to me is the idea that, I put a law in place in my house because they were going to follow it. And so if they didn't, there was consequences, and it was really about the rules and them bending to the rules. And it kind of struck me that, God put the law in place knowing we wouldn't follow it. And we learn in the New Testament that he put it in place to lead us to Christ. And so it's it was interesting to me that I put the law in place for them to follow it. God put the law in place knowing we wouldn't. And so it really transformed, even when we talk about gospel conversations, it's, are we even, and I'm not saying it's wrong to have rules. I think that's very important because I think it reveals things about our children that they need to know about themselves, but not for the purpose of them bending to the rules, but for the purpose of leading them to Him. And so that
Yeah.
becomes really the center of those conversations, even when we think of how we set up rules in our house and discipline.
Yeah, I think that that really changed for us around the time that our oldest few were 10, 11, 12, 13.
Yeah, and God
Is when
bless
it
them because they went through
they were
all
the
these learning
they were the
curves with
grand
us.
experiments.
And
But when they were that age of us going, wait a minute, rules if rules reflect the law, if we're trying to live this home where you and I are a reflection of God the Father to our children, and then our rules reflect how God put law into place, then even I think the other thing that changed, not only like, well, what rules are we putting into place, and but also even our heart of really changed and said, then we expect our rules to be broken.
yeah,
We
and
like we're not
I mean,
surprised and we're not
yeah,
disappointed that we're not. I think that that changed for me, where before I was like, oh man, why do you have to keep breaking the rule?
yeah, it
Like,
was
why can't you,
disappointing, or worse, it was a prideful,
like, what's wrong with me?
like, or a reflection on you. So,
Yeah.
you know, God forbid they break them in front of people.
Well,
Then
and
it's a reflection on you as a parent, and it's like, wait a minute,
well,
when
and the
you know they're going
Kimsies,
to break them,
yeah. Well, and the
that,
Kimsies, like,
yeah,
we had such a passel of
yeah,
kids at that
yeah,
point when we were beginning to learn all this, and we
yeah,
had a what a like a 10, a 9, and a 7, five,
yeah,
three, and a baby, something like that. And we're beginning to learn this, and there were a lot of them breaking a lot of
yeah, they were
rules.
lawbreakers. It was
Lawbreakers.
very
We
disappointing.
had a lot of them.
Yes.
But God is so kind and He's so gracious unto us. So I get this question a lot, and I want to just side note and just put this out in this episode right this second. I get so many questions from older moms who are like, well, I wish I had heard this earlier. I wish I'd learned this then back when my kids were little. And I always, when I get to talk to that woman face to face, will tell her it's never too late
No.
to learn these truths and to walk this way with your kids. Whether your kids are, maybe you're saying, oh, it's too late because my kids are 15, 16, 18. I mean, Bethany, you don't know, they're just so going, our relationship is bad and it's all of this. I wish I'd known this then. I just want you to understand that both of us have experienced every years with different kids and in different seasons. You're never too late. That the gospel and the grace and the mercy that you begin to experience with Jesus, that then begins to flow out of you to your kids, it doesn't really matter their age. So I feel like I should just say that
Well, and it may be for the next generation.
right.
So as you pour into your child, however they may be 15 or they may be 30 or 40.
Yeah.
It's to the next generation and the next generation. So I mean, it's never never too late to do the right thing.
No. But so anyway, but going back then to what would you say? So one key principle that I think that we've kind of highlighted here, but we'll summarize real quick for everybody, is that we're not going to value behavior as primary. So the heart is primary. The behavior is simply the thing that highlights the state of the heart. And so, yes, it's the behavior that we see. So you're standing somewhere and your child disrespectfully responds to you, or hits a brother or sister, or tells you a lie, or actively rebels because they're a teenager. Whatever we see, and we tend to want to go on that behavior. But if we can take a minute and say, okay, well, what does that show about the heart? Right.
I mean, I'll unfortunately when I talk to men, most of the examples I give are what God did to hammer me when I was doing it wrongly or off focus. But I think something that God really hammered me on at some point of this journey of parenting is the idea as a Christian father. It's very easy to raise a Martha, and I had no clue how to raise a Mary. And so when I say that, the story of Mary and Martha, and Jesus walks into the house, Martha jumps up, starts cleaning the kitchen. Mary falls down and worships. And then Jesus said, Mary did the better thing. And so it was really kind of hard for me to understand with my own kids, how do we cultivate an environment that's more Mary than Martha? Because even in how we do Bible study or scripture memory or discipline or focus on behavior or apply pressure, all those things that produce an outcome, I felt like it was easier, maybe not easy to do, but easier to understand how to create a Martha in our children than a Mary. And I think, the Mary question is the heart, whereas the Martha question is about the behavior and the stuff. And so, I do believe God is much more interested in the heart. I tell guys, it's amazing to me to watch a really tough high school football player who's just all guy, and then he meets some girl and he's writing poems and buying flowers. And it's amazing how his behavior changed because somebody got his heart. And I really believe that's our relationship with God. It's not, you can't behave your way into a right relationship with God, or we wouldn't have needed Jesus. But once he has your heart, your behavior changes. And so how do we bring our children to a place where their heart is open to what God can do, not that they behave well?
Yes. And that takes time.
Oh, yeah.
That takes a lot of time.
There is no finish line.
Right. I think that was hard for me. Yeah. Like, I wanted to get to a point with my kids where I'm like, woo, that one's pretty done. I mean, that one is cooked and is ready to serve. And I think that brings us to our second big nugget that we talk about a lot over here on the Warrior Mama podcast, but about making our child a product.
Right. Well, and that's all kind of along those lines of that. It really isn't. I think when we think of making, our child being a product, it is about the outcome, the behavior, the reflection on us, well done, because somehow they're a, whatever that looks like, whatever we think, productive citizen, following the rules, whatever that's supposed to look like.
Not embarrassing us.
No, yeah, certainly
I hear
not
that a lot. Yeah.
That would be terrible. So it's just really kind of, or is it leading them into a sensitivity to God working in their life and that relationship? And again, there's never a place where you go, oh, well, that work's done. So I think it's just continuing to walk them into that. Even then they become parents, and now you're helping them walk through the realities of trying to walk somebody else through it, which in a lot of ways is the picture of discipleship. But it's you see how much they learn when they're then trying to carry that out with their own children. So, but it's never ending, and it is more about the heart and the heart's posture to God and getting that relationship in the right place than it is how well they behave. I think all the statistics scared us to death early on, where I think it was 88% of children that grow up in the church, when they leave home, leave the church. And I think in a lot of ways, that behavior-driven model of parenting leads to that. Because more today than ever, I don't think most people are that interested in being religious or just good for good's sake. And so it really is trying to help them understand themselves and the one that created them and bring them together.
Yeah.
Rightly.
Yes.
With the right heart posture.
Yes. And I think that that's been, for us, I know for me, I think one of the things that, I guess maybe one of the weaknesses in my parenting is I always want immediate results. Like, I always, want to leave that bathroom conversation, pep talk with that child, and that child will never do that again, because they now are completely, repentant, and they'll just turn away from that for forever. And so then the next time that we're back in the bathroom talking about that thing, I can become discouraged too. And
I've preached a lot of great sermons in the bathroom.
Right? That's why they don't work, because nobody listens. Nobody listens. That's why, learning that art of just a gospel discipline conversation, some really good questions, and that's about it. And let the child lead and let the Holy Spirit have his way, helps so much better. But
And I'll also say, I think as a father, it's very freeing because a lot of
mm,
ways, even discipline when you're trying to get to an endpoint or an outcome that you desire in it, it becomes personal. And I think
mm,
in this setting, it really isn't. It's just trying to, again, help them see themselves, walk them back to
mm-hmm.
the one who created them. It wasn't
Yeah.
me, it wasn't you. And help them wrestle there is really a tremendous freeing, but also rewarding when you watch that process take place and watch it work in their life.
Yes.
Much more rewarding than them behaving well. So
Yes. Yes, I was talking with somebody today at lunch, and we were talking about parenting and learning that switch. And you can come on another time. We'll have to talk about this in detail about that, learning that switch from rules to wisdom, but really beginning to understand that's too much for this. That will take us a whole nother hour. We'd be
yeah,
talking on this
it's a
podcast.
good one though.
It's a good one, but we learned though that, you know, and what I was telling her today at lunch is that so often what I was trying to do is here's my child and here's God. And so I was coming in the middle, and I was coming in the middle to fix, like to work down here with this child. And I'm trying to fix this child and do all this stuff when really God is like, no, 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 I'm at work. What I need you to do is come alongside and not try and come right here and be the fixer. I need you to come alongside and accompany this child yeah, to the throne room, pivot their eyes back, remind them again of truth, remind them again of hope. I know that we've had some children in our home that were, you know, strong willed and pretty like, I'm going to do it my way. And, you know, that tends to be a lot of disobedience and a lot of pushing the boundaries and, you know, and all that. But then we also have had some personalities in our home among our 8 that have been more like so discouraged
Mm-hmm. I was going to say
that it almost like, oh, I'm hopeless, like I'm never going to be quote good. And so the gospel goes both ways. It not only helps reveal the heart of a sinner, it also gives hope and encouragement to the one who sees their sin and is being beat to death by condemnation about their sin. And so we get to be that hope.
Well, and I would say too, just for encouragement, I mean, for parents of a strong-willed child, that's not a bad thing.
It's a great
God
thing.
created them that way.
Yeah.
If it's, submitted to him and pointed in the right direction, the gates of hell are in trouble.
That's right.
So it's not a bad thing, but we also realize that the quiet, well-behaved children are not always okay in their heart. And so you have to probe a little bit and really, one way or the other, try to get back to the heart of your child, whether it be, oh, they're very pleasant and just go along. Because if your goal is well-behaved children, that's awesome. Except their heart may not be well, and they may still be well-behaved and doing. So it's,
we even had one amongst our 8 that was a very, very well behaved, compliant child. And because when they looked outward in the fray of all other 7 siblings, and there were all these crazy, like highly driven,
not
behavioral
so
issued children, I think this child, and I've talked with this child now, really kind of said, well, I'm really not that bad. Like they're all bad, but in helping that child have an understanding of why they needed a savior required time and conversations too. Just like the one that loudmouthed, strong-willed, I'm going to push the boundaries, that maybe demanded that I was in more bathroom conversations with that child. But the reality was that child was hearing the gospel over and over and over and over. And the child who kind of could go an entire day without misbehaving wasn't hearing the gospel applied to them. And so Jesus wasn't as real. And when God began to open our eyes to this and help us see, no, 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 I'm not about behavior. It's not about only dealing with behavior. It's about heart and really studying your children and seeing where they are and understanding who they are in this moment. That changed that. And I think in a lot of ways for us.
Absolutely.
And was a blessing. Oh my goodness. Such a blessing. God is kind. Well, is there anything else we should do in this one? Okay, well, let's finish with this. What would you say? Because I think this is funny, or I don't know, funny. This could get us into a lot of trouble. What would you say were we'll start with, what is that when you do, like, it's like a sandwich, you start with something good and then you put something not so good and then you finish with something good. So let's do strengths and weaknesses, but we have to make it a sandwich. Yeah. So, like, I think some of your strengths, and then I'll do a weakness in the middle, and then I'll do a strength, like that. Okay. And a big fat sandwich. Yeah. And then you can do me, because I think this will help people maybe be like, oh yeah, they're not like perfect people, because we are not. And I think it's so easy to look into somebody else's world on social media, or even to listen to this podcast and think, oh gosh, Bethany just has it all wrapped up and she's just whatever. It's not true. And God is a gracious and loving Heavenly Father who is constantly correcting us. So I think it would be good, but I want it in a sandwich because my love language is words of affirmation. So I don't really want to be crushed in this. I know there's lots of weakness.
This is all a lead
I know there's lots of weakness.
Giving me the rules of engagement.
Because, I just don't know what you can come out with for me. It could be a lot. So, okay, I think that the strengths for you in parenting, from which one of them has been wonderful from the beginning, was you really had perspective. So right from the beginning, whenever I have a brand new baby, y'all, and I'm in definitely the first 6 weeks to 3 months with a brand new baby, I lose all perspective. Like, number one, I'm in love because I have this precious baby. I'm completely exhausted and I'm trying to keep the baby alive. And so I think that one of the gifts of parenting with you has your ability to speak perspective into those moments. So when I'm like feeling like this child will never sleep through the night and I'm about to lose my mind, of you just coming into that space with perspective and saying, no, wait a minute. Let's think clearly. Even just like, we joke about it, but you used to, I'll be like, I don't know if anything's working. I don't know if this one may not be gaining weight. And because nursing is so, makes you feel so vulnerable as a mom. If you're a mom who nurses, it just makes you feel vulnerable. You're not sure you're doing it right every time. And you would always be like, well, are they peeing? Are they pooping? They're doing fine. You're doing great. You're doing great. It's going to be fine. But so I think perspective is a real strength that you bring in, and you bring it in, and you're very good at helping see, like, okay, what's our long-term vision when I start to get lost in the weeds of just emotionally parenting. And then a weakness here. So here's your piece in the middle. No, I think that the Lord has done huge work in you. I see it over 27 years, but I do think that you came into parenting with this idea, and I think it had been, modeled. That's what you had kind of experienced too, of just, it's my way. And God has, no, it's not. No, yeah. It's not, but that's okay. God's working on all of us. But God has definitely worked on you in that, where that isn't really your outlook anymore. But I think weakness in parenting would be, your probably your fallback is, well, it's my way. My way to
is my other strength patience? Is that?
That's probably
my other huge piece of meat in the middle of the sandwich.
I wasn't going to bust on you on that one. Patience is, but God, again, like 27 years, y'all, you get perspective and you begin to see the growth of your partner. That's the beauty of co-parenting. Like, you do get to see the strength of your partner as they go and they grow. But and then I guess here's your other part of your sandwich is, I think you're probably the fun parent. Do you think you're the fun parent?
No.
No?
I wouldn't say that.
Am I the fun parent?
Yeah, she's totally. Bethany's way of regrouping is to throw a party. So we just built one. So everything is. I remember coming in from work one day and every child is on the countertops.
Dancing.
And they're dancing through some musical on the countertops. And so, no, okay. I like to have fun, but I wouldn't say.
Well, you're funny. I think you're the one. I think you're the one that everybody knows is going to understand the joke or the sarcasm in the moment. And I tend to be the parent who is more literal, serious. So that's what I'm saying.
Sarcasm is not good for the literal.
Right. So I think that that's
Yeah.
what I mean when I say that, which I think is a super strength because it,
Yeah.
it helps our children feel safe with you to even be a little sarcastic
Well, and I'll say,
without it being viewed as disrespect. Like it's okay to be
yeah, I
sarcastic.
think to some degree strengths can be weaknesses, but I definitely think your strengths are just really how well you love our children. I mean, there's no question in their mind. You love them, you relate well, you're very intentional with that. I think your piece of bologna or whatever's in the middle of this sandwich.
The trash in the middle.
Yeah, whatever that rabbit food.
So it's not an Oreo because,
Yeah,
like, it
that's
should
terrible.
be.
It should
I
be an
know.
Oreo.
I
All
know.
layers are good.
Yeah.
Yeah, gosh, if I had to say a weakness, I'd probably say um, around like organization and structure and that idea of just love and grace overflowing where sometimes it needs a little bit of hey. And I will say it's funny because there's different children who respond differently. So we have a few more direct children. So no is a great answer. They respond. They don't need explanation. They don't have to feel good about it.
Yeah.
They just need stop, and they stop. And so,
and they're not hurt by that.
They're not wounded.
That's a whole conversation for another day. That we're gonna have to talk about.
Yeah, and so I think if anything, it's sort of that.
Yeah.
Trying to be real guarded about how they feel about it, which isn't a bad thing, but I think it can be in moments of discipline or other areas. I said it. I think the way you love and relate is one thing, but I think the other huge strength is just intentionality. I mean, just being very intentional with everything we do with the children, how we do it, why we do it. And I think keeping it in line with what are we trying to accomplish here? What is the long term goal in these relationships? That would be mine.
Well, this has been good. I'm glad you came on.
Well, thank you.
I'm going to invite you back. You're a good guest.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll just watch from over there.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, no, you can. You can be on the show again. I think that would be a good topic. Actually, is talking about how we've seen our children, how they are so different, and so therefore we have to relate to them differently.
Yeah, that was a huge learning thing for me early on.
Yes, that they're all going to be unique.
Understanding that they're different, and
so they take input.
To your point, my idea that things are going to be done a certain way, I realized with some kids that worked, and other kids it was completely ineffective, and really trying to understand who are they and what's the best way to reach them, whatever. Yeah, interact.
Yeah, that's a good conversation we could have one time.
Definitely. Yeah.
Talk about studying our kids a little bit more. Well, y'all, as always, thank you for joining us here at the kitchen table or in this conversation time. And if you are interested in learning more about learning the art of a gospel discipline conversation, you can find it down in the show notes and an easy link. And we look forward to talking to you next week.